I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. As a community bank, we believe that open dialogue about the issues affecting our region is vitally important. From the economy to the environment to social issues, we look forward to the conversations and hope you'll join in.
Welcome to Studio Sacramento. I'm your host, Scott Syfax. 2012 marks the 10-year anniversary of the opening of the Mondavi Center for the Performing Arts. To celebrate this milestone, there's a big performance coming up. Joining us today to talk about this and more are philanthropist Margaret Mondavi, Jeremy Ganter, Mondavi's Associate Director, and Don Roth, Executive Director of the Mondavi Center. Welcome to Studio Sacramento. So tell us about your big event.
Oh, wonderful event coming up in March 17th, as well as on the 18th. But what I think is probably the greatest story ballet of this new century of ours is going to have its United States premiere at the Mondavi Center on March 17th.
And the ballet is?
The ballet is Blanche-Neige, Snow White, a full-length ballet by Angeline Prelzicage, Ballet Prelzicage of France. This is the third time of that company to come to us, but never before has Prelzicage done this kind of major work.
This is the U.S. premiere.
It's the United States premiere. This was a piece that was premiered in December of 2008 in France, in the south of France, in Paris. It's been all over Europe to great acclaim. It's opened a new art center in China. But it's never been here to the Western Hemisphere, to North America, and we've been working on this since 2009 to make this happen. And we thought we would have the West Coast premiere, but I think they decided that as great as the Kennedy Center is, I know you're familiar with, that it ought to come to the Mondavi Center
Thank
first.
you for the Kennedy Center plug. Margaret, this is not our children's Snow White, though, correct?
No, it's an adult Blanche-Neige with music by Gustav Mahler, and the costumes are fantastic. Jean-Paul Gaultier, which a week later will open his exhibit at the Young Museum in San Francisco. So you're in for a treat of all the senses. Think of visual, these costumes, these artists. We were fortunate, the three of us went to see a performance in Orléans, south of Paris last year. And it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And we are so proud to show it here at the Robert Mondavi Performing Arts Center at Davis, which has marvelous acoustics, equipped for ballet, and will bring in an audience that will be as enchanted as we were when we were there.
Jeremy, from an artistic perspective, tell us about the magnitude of this performance.
Well, it's, I mean, you sort of think of it like the way a Broadway show would tour. I mean, you're talking about multiple tractor trailers of about 30 people on the road with the company.
What, one or two tractor trailers?
I think it's 2 tractor trailers. And it takes, a normal dance company takes about a day or so to load in and get up and get ready to show, and this one takes about 4 days.
Wow, that sounds like a really complicated show.
It is, and I think our crew can't wait to get their hands on it.
But it's a great challenge.
Yes. One of the elements about it is that there's a lot of aerial work. So the miners in this case, the dwarves, are sort of flying along this rock wall.
Now, by miners, do you mean minor kids or
No, miners.
Oh, okay, miners.
With the lights on their helmets. The dwarves were miners, in the original tale, and that's where they were going off to work. But in this case, they're not dwarfs, they're normal-sized dancers.
Yes. And so there's that. There's a lot of aerial work which requires a couple days of rigging to get all that to work properly and safely. And there's obviously sets and a whole lot of good stuff. So I think it's going to be a fun day a fun week for our crew as well as the
to present this drama.
Yes.
It's major, isn't it, Jerry? Yes.
Well, and there's been a huge commitment on the part of Mondavi to dance and ballet, and this is the culmination of all of that?
I'd say it's a culmination. I think it's a nice capstone for the first 10 years, and it's a nice signal about where we're going for the next 10 years. And this is, as Don mentioned, this is Preljakage's third appearance, and I think we've been able to kind of grow the audience as they've appeared over the years, and I think.
And we want to come back to that.
Sure.
I also, Margaret, want to talk to you about the gala. Mondavi's going to hold its first gala in celebration of this performance and of the 10 years. What does this mean to you, 10 years in after the opening of the center?
Feast, joy.
Well said, well said.
And we all need joy, you know. And this is the year where I feel joy is going to be very important, and we are going to have a great year. And why not start it with something like that? Isn't that St. Patrick's Day?
It is St. Patrick's Day, and the wine will not be green, but we welcome everyone to come down to enjoy themselves. You know, it's a, as Margaret's saying, it's a joyous occasion for us. The piece is so beautiful. It's one of those few works of art that is both very accessible and yet very meaningful in what it says about, you know, our condition as human beings. And of course, in the spirit of Robert and Margaret Mondavi, not only is it a great piece of art, but it's surrounded by great food, great wine. We're doing this jointly with the other beneficiary of the largesse of the Mondavis, which is the Robert Mondavi Institute for Wine and Food Science. And the gala will benefit graduate students over there. It'll give us the ability to bring more great works like this. And you know, absolutely.
Yes.
And it's a night. It is a night in which we hope many people will be generous. We already have many generous sponsors, and it reflects the heritage of generosity.
Well, tell us a little bit why the director chose Snow White, not Pinocchio. Why this particular piece?
You know, Angeline Preljakage, who's now in his mid-50s, one of the things he says is, you know, I haven't done a story ballet before, but everybody loves stories. I love stories. And the reason I picked Snow White is through the lens of kind of the, you know, there have been a lot of psychological looks at fairy tales. He goes back to the Grimm's fairy tales, and you say, you know what this is? This is Oedipus in reverse. This is where the parent wants to kill the child, in this case, the step-parent. And it really is about that. And he says, and he's right when you see this, that the stepmother, the wicked stepmother, really is the central character.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, in the sense that the drama is really built around her jealousy of Snow White. Otherwise, you have many beautiful love scenes that we saw in the ballet and that you see in the ballet. It's beautiful pas de deux. It's beautiful, graceful, classically based dancing, but the drama comes from her jealousy of Snow White. The whole, we won't spoil for you exactly how the mirror works in this, but the mirror scenes with this mirror, mirror on the wall things are spectacular. Spectacular, but really it is that the symbol of that the stepmother who is powerful, she's sexy, she's just really somebody
who wouldn't be sexy in a Jean-Paul Gaultier ensemble.
Perhaps me, but
well, that makes two of us. But.
Was it kind of wine-colored?
Oh yeah, you know, it's red and black, and you'll see that in the. We have a wonderful person doing the decor for the gala, and you'll see the colors of the costumes, which of course in Snow White's cases are beautiful flowing white costumes and kind of pastels for Prince Charming, but the stepmother is all black and red and a little devilish.
Powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I wanted to ask you about the continuing commitment of Mondavi to dance, because this is one more step, as you said a little bit earlier, of a culmination of the investment that you all have put artistically and financially into this art form. Can you tell us a little bit about that investment?
Sure. I mean, I think one of our realities is we have this extraordinary theater, and which is beautiful for dance. It's beautiful for music, and I think it would be to be able to not present the kind of, you know, big spectacular work like Snow White would be a shame. I think there's that. I mean, we have an extraordinary palette to work with. And what we found early on is that there's a real thirst for modern dance in this market. I mean, we have the Sacramento Ballet here, which is a wonderful company doing wonderful work, which has helped develop audiences here. And we're bringing in companies for which, you know, we find kind of no matter what we do, there's about 600 or 700 people that will come along for the ride, plus. And over the years, that's grown to 1,000 or more. And so the audience has grown with us, and it's allowed us to take bigger chances and to continue to just kind of grow the market, which has been great.
Well, let's talk about that for just a moment. Margaret, when you and your husband made the initial gift in order to bring this vision to life, there was a lot of discussion within this region as to whether or not this region could support another major arts institution. And so I'm just curious from the three of you, what came first, the audience or the repertoire?
That's not, I think that would be done, you would have to answer that. For us, it was Davis because many reasons. One, of course, was that when Robert Mondavi at its height, we had 16 Davis graduates working for us. Fantastic. And these were, of course, graduates of the Viticulture Enology School, which is one of the premier wine schools in the world. Mm-hmm. However, it lacked a facility that was adequate to the talent. And having the benefit of people that have been educated in this very wonderful college made us also feel a little responsible. And I know years ago we were trying to get vintners together to see if we couldn't build a new wine school. It didn't work. Something didn't work. And finally Bob kind of said, I'm going to do as much as I can myself, and you'll be with me. And so we did. And of course the Performing Arts Center was the first step. But now the whole compound sort of reflects that we are so thankful of what David has done, because you're really worth what the people that work for you do for you, right?
Right.
And so that was the philosophy of it. Yeah.
And if your husband was at this table
Yes.
Today, what do you think he would think of all that has happened in the 10 years since the opening?
He would applaud. He would say, well done, okay? And looking at the two gentlemen across the table for me, I said, well done, wonderful job.
Thank you.
So with regards to the audience, building the audience to support an institution like Mondavi, that was a pretty gutsy move when the center first opened. How did that happen?
Well, and Jeremy's really been here since the beginning, and I've been here the last 6 years. But I think the process is always both a leading and a following, and a reflection. You know, we knew when the center was built, and Jackson Hall, with Barbara Jackson's generosity within it, was built probably primarily to be a concert hall, then the ability to be this amazing place for theater and dance. And so we knew there was an audience there. So we were following that, but at the same time, I think it's our job to kind of lead and take. I admire very much the approach that Steve Jobs had, which is to provide people with things they may not have known they wanted, but then you bring them to that spot.
Uh-huh.
You bring them to that spot.
And I would add, a big part of that vision for the Mondavi Center came from the then Chancellor Larry Vanderhoof, who sort of stunned everybody by standing up early in his career as chancellor and saying, this is going to happen. We need this here, and we need it now. And Larry, along with a lot of other people like the Mondavis, kind of willed it into being, which was pretty extraordinary.
Well, to build on Don's reference to Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs, in the book that Walter Isaacson just did on him, made the point that he never listened to focus groups. Because if he listened to focus groups, all he'd do is follow his audience, rather than help lead them to something that was even better. And that's what it does sound like that you all have accomplished here in terms of being able to take that risk. In doing so, what have you learned about this region in terms of what its desire for cultural offerings and artistic offerings has been like?
Well, one thing I would say is that, and this is, when artists come to the Mondavi Center, They comment on, they feel well treated. We like that. Some of them may not have been able to point out either Davis or Sacramento on a map, and now they're suddenly saying, what a facility. They walk into the hall, what a facility, what an acoustic, what technical abilities. But after the performance, they also comment on the receptivity, the focus, the engagement of the audience.
Easy parking.
And easy parking. Easy,
Very important.
very
Very
easy for you. This is not a, but you know, we have audiences that welcome, you know, I mean, I think it's a little bit about the nature of our region. People here are welcoming, they're open. And so the artists feel that. You know, we also try to help that out by activities that, you know, provide more information so people know what's going on. But we have great audiences, and as you know, Jerry pointed out, there was a pool of people who were hungry for modern dance. We've grown that pool. And the Sacramento Ballet, which has been here longer than us, helped build that, as did other organizations. So it's symbiotic within all of these.
Well,
May I
talking
add?
Oh, go, please.
Add something about audience, because I think you have to also put it geographically, because you have the people from the interior valley have access where there may not have been much of venues for performing arts. It's easy, as I said.
Yeah,
The roads are there, the parking is there, and so you have an other audience that may not have had a chance to come to the great performances.
Well, speaking of great performances, you have a reputation of marrying great performances, not only with the wines that your wineries produce, but also you were a trailblazer in combining that experience with art and with food. And so I'm interested in how you came to that, and what is the relationship of experiences between wine, food, and culture?
Well, let's come where I come from. Okay, I come from wine, right? And my husband, of course, was a great innovator. And you used the word a little bit of Steve Jobs, that it, you know, you have to inspire. And Bob was an inspiring person, and he believed in something and he went for it, and nothing deterred him, you know. And so when I came to work for Robert Mondavi, that's when I met Robert Mondavi, he was always eager to hear of something new that could somehow bring wine to the forefront, because we needed that. There were a lot of American people had no wine culture, you know. Right. And what I brought when I suggested the summer festivals and the art shows and later the cooking schools was that soft sell. And he always said, if it's good, don't talk about it, do it.
We like that. It's good.
And he he empowered me, and he said, do it. Usually he said it shouldn't cost anything, but do it.
Sounds like a good CEO.
I started with, humbly, you know, I started with a humble festival, and it grew fast, because there too, there wasn't anything going on. Now today, everybody has. At that time, they're talking about the 70s, 60s, the late 60s, you know. And then with the art show, I saw the empty walls. And I said, look, I belong to the North Bay Artists, and everybody wants to show some art. Can I bring? Do it. And then later on, two young men came to the door one day and said, well, we are trying this cooking school. Of course, they needed help and so forth. And he always said, well, the best way for us to show good wine is with gastronomy. So do it. That was a little more expensive. But anyway, we got...
And then you all spearheaded the launch of Copia.
That, yes.
And while that particular experiment did not necessarily go because of timing and everything else the way that we all dreamt it would, it did, though, have a massive impact on leading the way for an even greater symbiosis, to use your word, between wine, culture, and food. And how do you think that the work that you and your late husband have done has impacted the Napa Valley in terms of where it is today?
Well, I think there is a realization now that Copia was the beginning of what's now happening to Napa, that there are performing arts centers, that there are good restaurants, that the streets are lively, that the town has just revived. And that's a great pleasure because I came in 1960 to Napa Valley. And the town of Napa was kind of on the wrong side of the river, you know? And everybody went up valley for, and now there's stuff, there's stuff to see. And a very important factor, as we were talking, was the young people. And that you have something for the young people and they don't, they can go somewhere, you see. You know, there are good places to eat that are not terribly expensive. There are venues, there's the Opera House, there's the Uptown Theater, there's now a performing art place at the Napa Valley College. Things go, hey,
There's lots to
hey,
do.
we've come somewhere.
I have to ask you a question because the people watching this show, I know, have a burning question for you. When you're not drinking wine, what do you drink?
Do I have to say? Do I drink? Well, for breakfast I have tea, but I also like good coffee.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I hate water.
No water. Okay. All right. I had to get that out of the way. I had to get that out. Let's go back to what Margaret was talking about young people. Now, Don, you have been in the leadership of an initiative here in the region called For Art's Sake, and that's to involve children and young people more in the arts. Tell us about that and the importance of having young people involved in arts education and artistic experiences.
Yeah, I'd like to do that, and I think Jeremy also can speak to what we're doing at the Mondavi Center. But you know, For Art's Sake, which is an initiative of Mayor Johnson in Sacramento, to really raise the visibility and the impact of the arts here. We have wonderful arts groups. But they're going through the difficult times that many are. And so For Art's Sake has focused on three things. One is Artober, which is a festival of the arts for the 31 days of October here. Another is a focus on increasing private giving, specifically for the arts in Sacramento. And the third is to join up with the Any Given Child, which is a Kennedy Center launched initiative. We were the first city. Mayor Johnson made that happen. And what really the next phase, I think, for arts education in our area is to look at what all these arts groups are doing it's so wonderful in various ways for young potential audience members, young artists, for teachers, and to kind of coordinate that in a way that has the most impact on young people. And I really, For Art's Sake, wants to take a leadership role in ensuring that happens. We're not an arts organization, we're really a facilitator.
Well, I want to ask you, Jeremy, you're involved in a lot of national organizations that deal with bringing cultural and artistic experiences to their particular regions and the like. What is the importance, though, and the relevance of making sure that young people are involved to the forward work of the Kennedy Center and other organizations across the country like yours?
I think one of the critical things is that exposure is great. So coming to performance is great, but it is not enough. I think
it's not enough.
It's not enough. And I think what is important is that we do things like bring school groups into performances, we give them that exposure, but we also, on a kind of a more local and smaller level, that we're providing opportunities for young artists to be artists and to help them train and to give them time with the great artists that are coming through this region.
And you all do that.
We do, yes, we do. And for example, this year we started a jazz band in partnership with the SF Jazz organization, which only has 8 students in it. And it's about 6 months of rehearsals and a performance, but those 8 students are having the experience of their life. And it will feed them forever.
You also, as an interesting component is that oftentimes after some performance, you'll have someone from the cast or a director come out and speak to the audiences, so that way there's more of an interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, even sometimes, Don says this a lot, even if they don't say anything particularly interesting, just being there with them and sort of just hearing them talk about their work is magic.
Right. We are down to our last minute, and so I want to ask all three of you one question. In the 10 years of the Mondavi Center and your collective and individual involvement with it, what was your proudest moment? And Don, I'll start with you.
There's too many to count,
Well, you
but
got 15
I got
seconds,
15 seconds. This year, James Conlon, wonderful artist, wonderful speaker, who spoke to our audience and made them want to enjoy one of the most difficult pieces, the Shostakovich 14th Symphony, and they did. And he made that happen, and like Jeremy said, connecting our audience to the artists.
All right, Jeremy, you have 10 seconds.
One of my many proudest moments was when we brought the Merce Cunningham Dance Company, because it was a huge risk artistically, financially, and in every way. And they came for a week, and Merce himself came, and it was extraordinary. It was a great week of dance.
And Margaret, you get the last word.
Well, whatever, you know, I say bravo, I'm into everything you said. The opening was fantastic. So I remember when they climbed up the walls. Oh, my. The last concert I was with the Royal Orchestra and Charles Dutoit, who is a fellow Swiss, and the relationship then also came kind of, and it, really, and to have Jean-Yves Thibaudet on the piano playing the Egyptian, this was the fourth, right, the fifth of Cessna. It was the fourth of Tchaikovsky, the fifth of Cessna.
All right.
And I just couldn't believe this fabulous performance in this wonderful hall, and to be there, oh wow, you know.
And that was the one.
Because every day is a present.
And you know what? On that note, we're going to have to leave it here. Well, good luck on the gala. Fantastic run over the past 10 years. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you.
That's our show. Thanks to our guests, Margaret Mondavi, Jeremy Ganter, and Don Roth. There's lots of talk on television, but only a few places where the conversations matter. I'm Scott Syfax, and you've been watching Studio Sacramento. Join us next time, right here on KVIE.
I'm James Beckwith, President and CEO of Five Star Bank. As a community bank, we believe that open dialogue about the issues affecting our region is vitally important. From the economy to the environment to social issues, we look forward to the conversations and hope you'll join in.